It's Friday, which means it's movie day. There are new films out today. So this is where we get our movie critic, Van Connor, to come on the show to talk about some of the new releases that are out today, whether they're worth watching, whether they're worth avoiding. With his brutally honest opinion, it is Van Connor. Good afternoon and welcome back to the show, Van.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Bourne. You know, I'm always happy to be back when there's a new Marvel movie. That's what I live and breathe for, after all.
Of course, that's the biggie today. Black Panther, the new one, which we are going to be talking about in just a moment to see what your thoughts are on it. But first, where do you want to start? What's the first movie that's out today you want to talk about?
Well, let's talk about A Bunch of Amateurs, which is, I think I've best described as a really cute, really charming movie about a community-run cinema organisation, the Bradford Movie Makers Club, who are a community organisation of film fans. They run a small local cinema, a little screening room together, and it largely centres around their attempts to stage a recreation of one of their members' favourite movies, Oklahoma, which they literally do with a good use of green screen and sort of amateur off-the-shelf, you go pop into Curry's and buy it, filming equipment. Of course, during all of this, we have COVID as well, so, things don't exactly go swimmingly. It's a very independently made production. You can barely even find a trailer for this. It does have a social presence if you check at A Bunch of Amateurs on Instagram, but a very sweet, very charming movie. As I say, there's not an awful lot to say about it. If you've ever been involved in small-scale, local independent filmmaking, this will have more than a few moments that will have you going, yeah, I recognise that one.
I did some because I studied media at Abingdon and Whitney College actually, and I did do some some attempt at some amateur filmmaking, and quite often there's always little things that go wrong, things that aren't quite right, someone walking across the back when they're not meant to be. I mean, is all of that included in this?
Oh, every step you can imagine, every little hang-up, every snafu you can think of that you've ever encountered is in there. I thought this was a genuinely charming movie. It's also probably the most Bradford-based film documentary I've ever encountered that didn't involve the presence of my dear friend Tony Earnshaw, which genuinely shocks me. I would recommend this highly. If you've ever had an interest in independent filmmaking, this is definitely one to check out.
Okay, and that's out today in cinemas, right?
This is out today on limited theatricals. It's called A Bunch of Amateurs. Definitely check that out.
Okay, now, the big one that everyone's been waiting for, of course, we're talking about Black Panther. When did you get to see this? Was it quite recent?
I got to see this on Tuesday. I will let it be known that we had no knowledge that I was going to see this. I woke up that morning to an email confirming my presence. I had no knowledge the screening was even that night.
Wow.
So that was fun. But, I'll shuffle the deck entirely for a new Marvel movie. And, of course, this is kind of the biggie because this is closing out Phase 4 of the MCU. This is a movie that comes in the wake of the tragic passing of the late, great Chadwick Boseman, who, for a lot of people, is someone akin to Christopher Reeve. He's that kind of a presence. He brought this character to the fore in live action. Even though Superman, for instance, had been done before, Christopher Reeve is regarded as, the first fully fledged cinematic Superman. Chadwick Boseman is that for the Black Panther. There was literally no live action Black Panther before him. He is now gone. And of course, the movie has to be a compromised product because it is. So you've got a movie that literally deals with what happens in the wake of the passing of the Titan. What happens when the great protector of the Afrofuturist nation, the secretive, powerful nation of Wakanda, has passed? How does the world respond to that? And more importantly, how does Wakanda itself respond to the world's response, particularly when said world includes an entirely new secretive nation, which in the comics is Atlantis, but since Aquaman is now a movie and they got there first, we have to call it Talocan now. And I don't know how they came up with Talocan. Instead of Namor, we've got Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, played by Tenoch Huerta, who I must say is very, very good in this. I never thought that Namor would be this well done in a live-action feature film, but you know what? I live to be wrong, and thank God Marvel continues to do that with me. So you've literally got Wakanda versus the world with the nation of Atlantis / Talocan kind of in the middle. I've got a clip for you, and this is Queen Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett, and Princess Shuri Letitia Wright, encountering Namor / Namor / Kukulkan for the first time.
Stop! Right there! Who are you? And how did you get in here?
This place is amazing. The air is pristine. And the water. My mother told stories about a place like this. A protected land with people that never have to leave, that never have to change who they were. What reason do you have to reveal your secret to the world?
I am not a woman who enjoys repeating herself. Who are you?
I have many names. My people call me Khan. But my enemies call me Namor.
Oh, see, I've seen a little bit of a trailer of this, and the effects are outstanding.
Yes, particularly given how bad they were in the first one. That's really something. This is a very difficult cinematic property because, like I say, it is a compromised product. And the problem is it never quite stops feeling like that. First 10 minutes are great. The third act gets there. But it's comparative to the first one, an absolute shambles and a mess. There are some creative decisions in this that I'll absolutely never understand. I will never understand, for instance, why Michaela Cole has been brought in for this, for a role that should be played by Florence Kazumba, who had already been doing it for several films and an entire Disney Plus series beforehand. They also then managed to add insult to injury in the third act by literally involving Florence Kazumba. But it is quite a hefty, emotional film. I mean, it's got a lot of action. I mean, the body count in this is so high, I had to check that it hadn't been produced by Matt Hancock. It is absolutely interstellar in terms of the absolute carnage this thing wrecks. It's such a big movie that they even managed to chuck in an Iron Man as if it's an afterthought.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, I can't really, from what you've said, decide whether you like it or you don't.
For me, it's a 3-star movie because the first one is a 5-star. But the problem is, like I say, it's a part 2. You are not going to see this unless you're already a fan of the Black Panther. No one's going into this without knowing who the Black Panther is or what happened in the first movie or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is a sequel through and through. It is the most definitive part 2. The problem is, you've got a part 1 that's one of the best movies of the last decade, if not this century. This was never going to measure up, and to be quite frank, it's not a patch on the first. Having said that, it's still infinitely better than Aquaman, to which you can draw direct comparisons.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was never going to be better than the first one, to be fair. So, I mean, that's a fair comment. And that's out in cinemas from right now.
From right now, it is in IMAX as well. If you can see it in IMAX, do, because like I say, huge movie. Huge does not necessarily equal awesome, but it is huge.
Amazing. All right, well, those are the two we're talking about today, and we'll be back with Van next week with a couple of different movies, of course. Do you know what we've got next week, yeah?
Oh, I do know next week we are going to talk about a couple that I have been really excited about. We have got a certain concert movie starring a certain Mancunian musician next week. You may have heard of him, Liam something. I think he's back in cinemas next week doing some musical performance of some description.
Absolutely, and I cannot wait to talk about it, and we will discuss it then. Speaking of which, I'm going to get him on right now. Too Good for Giving Up. Thank you, Van. We'll speak next week.
Till the next time, good time.
Take a step